Well, aloha. What's up, everyone? I'm JayDreamerZ, and I'm doing a series called The Plasma Apocalypse 101. It's the plasma apocalypse cycle, a cyclical cataclysm or apocalypse that befalls our world from time to time. It can get pretty in depth, and I have a lot of videos about it. So, this is going to be one of the sort of beginner videos. Last time we talked about cycles. This time we're going to talk about the flux, or the fluctuating between the two types of cataclysms. There's one by water and there's one by fire, and they go back and forth. What's up to everybody in the chat? Sorry if I sound weird or whatever. I'm getting over a little sickness, so we're going to push through and jump right into everything. I see everybody in the chat. Welcome, everyone. So check this out. I put a quote on the title for this video here. Let me go ahead and read it. There have been and there will be many and diverse destructions of mankind, of which the greatest are by fire and water, and lesser ones by countless other means. So there are various cataclysms that happen to our world. You know, there's volcanic cataclysms, there's earthquakes, there's all kinds of different things. These would be considered the lesser ones. There are two great cataclysms, one by water, known as the deluge or the flood, and the other one is by fire, or the fire from above, the fire that comes from the sky. Where does it come from? What is the fire? We're going to talk about both of them and break them both down, hopefully in simple terms that everyone can understand. So I see everyone in the chat. Hello, what's up, everyone? I'm not going to be in the chat for a bit. I want to get right into this one. I might jump into the chat a little towards the end. I'm going to hit a whole bunch of different topics all at once. And at the end, if you stay tuned until the end of the video, I've got a few diagrams so that you can see the mechanics of how this works. It's my own drawings, so hopefully they make sense to you. But yes, let's go ahead and kick things off. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and start my screen sharing. Booyah. Okay, cool. So this first one, I'm just at some random website called thetorah.com. This is antediluvian knowledge. Okay, antediluvian means before the flood. Okay, before the Great Flood. Now, if you didn't know, our world has been flooded. Now, believe it or not, that's news to many people. That's quite news to people. And they're like, well, do you have any proof of that? Yeah, it's called the ocean. There's not lots of different oceans either. I did a video about this too, called The World Was Flooded, ? The world is flooded. We are a flooded world right now, right? Where'd all this water come from? I'm not a big fan of the theory of asteroid snowballs or whatever it is academics is teaching people. So let's go back in time, shall we? Let's go back to the future. So yeah, there's prophecies in the ancient days. There were people who understood that the world works and reality works cyclically, that things happen over and over and over again, that there's nothing new under the sun. And therefore, if you understood what has happened in the past, you can accurately, or more better, predict the future. More betterly? I don't know. Anyway, you know what I mean. If you understand the past, you can better understand what is to come, because they are one and the same thing. So there were great prophets of old, wise men and women of ancient times who understood their history. Because they understood their history, they could accurately predict what was to come in the future, because those things are on a loop and they are on a cycle. So let's look at some of these predictions that the ancient people had. I'm going to go over some of these. The greatest one, I'm going to tell you a story before I actually jump into all of this. So let me just get rid of that real quick. Before I get into that, there is a story. Many people are familiar with Adam and Eve and the book of Genesis and the creation account according to the Bible. There are many different religions and many different beliefs and creation stories, etc. But this one in particular is of interest to me because it was told that the first man was given esoteric knowledge, hidden knowledge, knowledge that is hidden to us today. But he passed that knowledge along to his family. What was that knowledge? It was the knowledge of how the world works. It was the ancient cosmology, the mechanics of our local environment, how it worked, what kind of a cycle it was on, what were the timelines, how to read those timelines by observing the sun, the moon, and the stars. And that knowledge was passed along to his child, and then to that child's child, and to that child's child's child, and so on and so forth over time. This was the greatest and most valuable thing or gift that could have been given. Why? Because that knowledge would help to save that family or their progeny in the future, so that they could prepare for these cataclysms that would inevitably happen time and time again. So there was a prophecy given, essentially, that the world would be destroyed once by water and once by fire. Not just once and only once, or, by water, and once and only once by fire. That's up for debate. Some people would say otherwise. I'm just speaking from my perspective and my opinion and my research and stuff like that, as I always do. All right. Excuse me. Sorry. All right. So pushing forward, let's check out some of these prophecies. Okay. Now, these don't just come from the Bible. Okay. These, like, for example, I'm going to be quoting from Plato. There's the ancient Egyptian texts. There's Hermes Trismegistus. There's various places where these two cataclysms are discussed, right? So this first one, I'm actually going to zoom up a bit here. Ooh, good book. Jubilees. Let's see here. The Preservation of Pre-Flood Knowledge. If you want to check this website out, it's called thetorah.com /article/antediluvian knowledge. Ante means before, and then diluvian means deluge or the flood, before the flood. So before the flood waters, the ocean, came upon the world, there were prophecies where people knew of it and were warned beforehand, way before Noah or Deucalion or whatever other names he goes by. All right, so I'm getting to the first one here, Seth and the science of astrology. Now, who's Seth? Seth is you had Adam and Eve, and then of course they had their kids, Cain and Abel. Most people are familiar with those two children of Adam and Eve. Most people are familiar who study religion and whatnot. They're familiar with Cain and Abel getting into a fight and Cain killing Abel or murdering him or whatever, but they're not too familiar usually with the son that was born after that, which was Seth. Now, let's look at this. Here it is. Where is this from? Oh, this is from Flavius Josephus. He was a Jewish historian from, it looks like, about 37 AD, approximately. So this is from an actual historian, somebody that wrote down history and kept it as a record. I'm going to go ahead and read this. It says, they, the sons of Seth, discovered the science with regard to the heavenly bodies and their orderly arrangement, and in that order, that humanity might not lose their discoveries or perish before they came to be known. Adam, having predicted that there would be an extermination of the universe at one time by a violent fire, and at another time by a force with an abundance of water, they, the sons of Seth, made two pillars, one of brick and the other of stones, and inscribed their findings on both of them, in order that if the one of brick should be lost owing to the flood, the one of stone should remain, and offer an opportunity to teach men what had been written on it, and to reveal that also one of the... let me read that again. What had been written on it, and to reveal that also one of the brick had been set up by them. Okay, well, that was a terrible translation. So essentially, they were warned. There would be a cataclysm of water, a deluge, a flood worldwide, and there would be a cataclysm of fire, a flood of fire worldwide. So they were concerned about losing their knowledge. They were concerned about having to start over from scratch and being sent back to the Stone Age, symbolically speaking, and actually speaking. So what did they do? They took all of their collective important knowledge, the things that they felt was important. All of these references talk about the knowledge that they kept. Most of it has to do with their cosmology. Most of it had to do with the mechanics of the sky above and what lies beyond the sky, what is inside of the earth, what our earth is comprised of, the cycles that the earth goes through, and these types of things. Let's see here. So, let me go ahead and skip forward a bit. Sorry, one moment. There's a bunch of them. I don't want to read all of them because it would take forever. Okay, this one is very good. This is from the Pseudepigrapha. Pseudo means fake, so I don't really like the name for this collection of works. They call it Pseudepigrapha, which means fake writings, okay, because it's not in the Bible. So it's known as the Pseudepigrapha collectively, okay? But there is a writing known as The Life of Adam and Eve, The Apocalypse of Atoms, and many, many other ones. If you're interested in stuff like that, I highly recommend a collection called the Nag Hammadi. So, in the Pseudepigrapha, I believe this is from The Life of Adam and Eve, it says, Michael, the archangel, said to us, on account of your conspiracies, our Lord will bring upon your race the wrath of his judgment, first by water, and second by fire. Make therefore tablets of stone and other tablets of earth, and write on them my whole life and that of your father, which you have heard from us and seen. If he judges our race by water, the tablet of earth will dissolve, but the tablet of stone will endure. If, however, he judges our race by fire, the tablet of stone will be destroyed, but the tablet of earth will be fired or baked, essentially, right? So they made one pillar, one tablet. There's different words for these, right? I like how they say pillar in most of these. So they made this pillar, which is a library that contains all of their most important esoteric information. It's esoteric to us, okay? It was not esoteric to them at the time. It was common knowledge that was taught and passed from family to family, right? At least to those who were approved and showed that they were worthy to, trustworthy to keep and collect and hold the information and adhere to it and practice it, right? So on one of them, they made a pillar or a library made out of stone, right? That way, if the waters came, it would endure. The stone would endure the water, right? The water would not damage the stone. If the fire came, then the one that was made out of brick or earth would simply be hardened and baked and solidify, and it would endure as well. So they made two different ones so that whatever apocalypse befell the earth, the information would continue. Let's see here. There are many of these. I'm just kind of skipping through here. Here's another one. It looks like this one is from the book of Enoch. It says, Then I looked and turned to another face of the earth, and I saw there a valley, deep and burning with fire. Then Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, and Phanuel themselves shall seize them on the great day of judgment and cast them into the furnace of fire. That is burning that day. And I'm going to skip that one, actually. Let's see. Man, I had it highlighted earlier. Here's another one. We are certain that God will not bring another flood to the world, as it is said, and the waters shall no more become a flood. For this is as the waters of Noah unto me. For I have sworn that the waters of Noah should no more go over the earth. Now, I want to mention that because remember how I said some people would argue that it would be cyclical, right? Because the deluge or the flood waters were prophesied that they would not come again. However, there's a caveat to that, which is Noah's flood waters would not come again, right? According to the plasma apocalypse, all of the floodwaters, the entire ocean, will one day disappear. I believe it will be sucked up into the sky during a zero gravitational point, during the neutral point of a polarity shift. As the sky opens up and depressurizes, causing a worldwide tempest, all of the water gets sucked up into the sky and most of it leaves our world or becomes a part of the sky itself, the dome above. These are things we'll cover in future episodes or Plasma Apocalypse 101. So that would be Noah's floodwater, and I believe that there are other floodwaters that return. Then it talks about how the Lord caused fire to rain down upon Sodom and Gomorrah, etc. Oh man, where are the good ones? Here we go. Okay, so this is actually really interesting. So in Plato's dialogue, Timaeus, from the 4th century BC, it gives an account of the formation of the universe. One of the participants in the dialogue tells a story about the visit which the great Athenian lawgiver Solon made to the Egyptian city of Sais, and the conversation that he had with priests there. So there was this guy from Athens, and he went over to Egypt, and they're having this philosophic discussion, right? The priests explain why the Egyptians have ancient knowledge, while the Greeks do not, right? So they're discussing this because they say the Egyptians have ancient knowledge, but the Greeks don't, and here's the reason why. This is given by Plato. And they say, "You are young in soul, every one of you. For therein you possess not a single belief that is ancient and derived from old tradition, nor yet one science that is hoary with age. And this is the cause thereof. There have been and there will be many diverse destructions of mankind, of which the greatest are by fire and water, and lesser ones by countless other means." The priest then explains why it is that Egyptians are safe both from fiery conflagrations and from floods. Let's see what they say. "At such times of fiery conflagration, all they that dwell on the mountains and in the high and dry places suffer destruction more than those who dwell near to rivers or the sea. And in our case, the Nile, our Savior in other ways, saves us also at such times from this calamity by rising high. And when, on the other hand, the gods purge the earth with a flood of waters, all the herdsmen and shepherds that are in the mountains are saved. But those in the cities of your land are swept into the sea by the streams, whereas in our country neither then nor at any other time does the water pour down over the fields from above. On the contrary, it all tends naturally to well up from below. Hence it is, for these reasons, that what is here preserved is reckoned to be most ancient." Okay, let me translate that into modern English for everyone. Essentially what they're saying is, you, Athenians, have lost your ancient knowledge. You're not prepared for these events. You have no understanding of the cyclical cataclysms that come from time to time, how they come, why they come. So there's a few more of these, but I want to focus on Egypt and why or how the Egyptians have preserved this knowledge of the cyclical destruction of the world as we know it, or as they have known it in modern times, right? Let's check this one out from Philo. Forgetting the Shabbat. Shabbat is a word that means 7. It also means rest. Let's see here. This Greek concern about the loss of ancient knowledge through periodic natural catastrophes, let me highlight that, periodic natural catastrophes, appears explicitly in one Jewish source. The Jewish philosopher Philo of Alexandria uses destruction by fire and water to explain how it is that the holiness of the Sabbath has been forgotten until it was taught again to the Israelites by Moses, even though it had been holy since before the creation. He writes in the life of Moses, "Yet men knew it not, perhaps because by reason of the constant and repeated destructions by water and fire, the later generations did not receive from the former the memory of the order and the sequence of the events in the series of years." What does that mean? That means that not only is it cyclical, that these cataclysms happen, water, then fire, then water, then fire. They go back and forth, and these are the great ones. Remember this. But it also is cyclical that men forget. Humanity forgets. It happens, and then it's years and years and years until it happens again. And with the accumulation of time comes the disappearance of the memories of these events. Not just these events, but the memories of the ancient ways and the old days and the things and the way that the world once was and once worked. And that is the importance of ancient knowledge. Now, it's my belief, I'll just say, that ancient knowledge is returning to us rather quickly in these days, whether it be by purposeful investigation and independent research, or by revelation. I believe that revelation of these types of things happens and accumulates just before they happen again. And I like to believe that that's the Creator's way of giving us a boost, helping us out, dropping some hints or breadcrumbs right before so that we can still be saved from the cataclysms that will happen. All right, so I think that's enough of this particular website. Now, let me see what we got over here. Oh, there's a really interesting one. So there's an area in Jerusalem or near Jerusalem called, in Israel, called Qumran, the Qumran Caves. And in the Qumran Caves, there have been found ancient scrolls, so old that they have to be extremely careful when opening them because they'll just dissolve, right? They're that old. They're basically fragmented, right? They're brittle and they fall apart. So what they have found are these fragments. One of these fragments is from a scroll called the Book of Giants. In the Book of Giants, it depicts a dream in which a giant sees the destruction of a certain garden by water and fire. Most scholars take this symbolic dream to signify the upcoming destruction of the world by fire and by water. These are the ancient manuscripts and the ancient stories. These are the ones I'm most interested in learning. Let's see what else we've got here. We're going to read some various quotes. This one comes from the Antiquities of the Jews by Flavius Josephus, who we mentioned earlier. Let's see. I'll go ahead and read this, even though we've read it already. They, the children of Seth, also were the inventors of that peculiar sort of wisdom which is concerned with the heavenly bodies and their order, their mechanics, their workings, their cycles, and that their inventions might not be lost before they were sufficiently known upon Adam's prediction that the world was to be destroyed at one time by fire, or by the force of fire, and at another time by the violence and quantity of water. They made two pillars, two towers, the one of brick and the other of stone. They inscribed their discoveries on both of them, that in case the pillar of brick should be destroyed by the flood, the pillar of stone might remain, and exhibit those discoveries to mankind. So they're trying to save knowledge. Let's read on. Let's see what else we've got. This one comes from the life of Adam and Eve. And actually, no, we've already read that one. I'm going to skip that one. Let's see. This one comes from the history of the forefathers. The Armenian author writes about Enosh, who this person believes he has confused for Enoch. It's the same thing. Seventh, that he made the writings and wrote on a stela of baked brick and bronze. And he prophesied that the earth will pass through water and fire on account of the sins of humans. And he cast the baked brick into the water and the bronze into the fire in order to test them. If the fire was to come first, the bronze would melt. And if the water was to come first, the brick would be destroyed. And by this means he learned that the water was destined to come, and then fire. And these are a work of hope. Here's another quote. This one, let's see, The same Armenian story, it looks like. Another quote. However, we found that Enosh, son of Seth, made the letters and called planets by their names, and he prophesied that this world would pass away twice, by water and by fire. And he made 2 stelae of bronze and of clay. And he wrote upon them the names of the parts of the creation which Adam had called. And he said, if it passes away by water, then the bronze will remain, and if by fire, then the fired clay. This is the Byzantine writer of the Palea Historica, completes the transformation, and he makes Enoch offer the prophecy to the giants, the sons of the Watchers. So this is also something that's been repeated a lot in my research, that the giants were constantly warned, that there were some men of God who had foreknowledge of how the world worked. And it seems that the giants at the time had forgotten. Now, I'm going to jump in and give you a little plasma apocalypse insight. When it talks about the giants, and the giants being warned of a coming cataclysm, it will always be of the deluge. It will always be of the flood. The titans, the giants, sank, drowned in floodwaters. I've never seen it by fire, basically. There could be examples. One moment. Sorry about that. There could be examples, but why is that? That's because the giants exist during the red sky. When the sky turns red, and we'll talk about that in future videos as well. Right now we live under a blue sky. When the blue sky comes, that's when the world is flooded. That's when you have the ocean, right? Not many different oceans or seas or whatever. There's one. There's one ocean. It's called the flood. When the giants heard that the righteous Noah was building an ark for the flood, they laughed at him. See, I want to talk about that too. This is always what happens. It doesn't matter if they're giants or monsters or human beings. People will always ridicule those who say that the world is going to be destroyed, right? Not utterly destroyed, but the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine, right? I feel fine because I'm preparing myself for it. Other people feel fine because they don't believe it's going to happen. And those are the ones who are caught off guard. Those are the ones who perish. Those are the ones who have calamity strike them in the middle of the night, not knowing what's going on, fainting and having heart attacks from sheer fear of the situation because they never even thought it possible. Anyway, when the giants heard that the righteous Noah was building an ark for the flood, they laughed at him. But Enoch, who was still around, was also telling the giants that the earth would either be destroyed by fire or by water. And the righteous Enoch was doing nothing else but sitting and writing on marble tablets and on bricks the mighty works of God in which had happened from the beginning. For he used to say, if the earth is destroyed by fire, the bricks will be preserved, to be a reminder for those who come after of the mighty works of God which have happened from the beginning. And if the earth is destroyed by water, the marble tablets will be preserved. They're trying to preserve information. There are also, where is this from? This is from the Roman Ammianus Marcellinus. There are also in Egypt subterranean passages and winding retreats, which it is said men skillful in the ancient mysteries. They're called ancient mysteries, by the way, because they're a mystery to you, not to the ancients. They're a mystery to modern man today. Let me start that over. There are also in Egypt subterranean passages and winding retreats, which it is said men skillful in the ancient mysteries, by means of which they divined the coming of a flood, constructed in different places, lest the memory of all their sacred ceremonies should be lost. On the walls, as they cut them out, they have sculptured several kinds of birds and beasts, and countless other figures of animals, which they call hieroglyphics. Interesting. Egypt's in first place right now, as far as I'm concerned. If this was a race to survive the apocalypse, Egypt is kicking butt right now. We're going to come back to Egypt in a minute. This one's especially interesting. Let's talk about Hermes Trismegistus. Hermes Trismegistus. I'm going to read this part. Here, though, the story has been applied as a myth to explain the origin of Egyptian writing, already mysterious in the 380s AD when he wrote. It's the beginning of the secularization of the Jewish myth, and this finds full flower in early medieval Arab pyramid legends. Ooh, now we're getting into something. The pyramids, which we can quickly see are the same Jewish story in new clothes, specifically those of Hermes Trismegistus, the magician they identified with Enoch. On the strength of the Greek tradition that Hermes had written books about the history of the Watchers and their invention of alchemy. Thus, from this, Hermes became the actor in the drama of his own right. Now listen to this. This Hermes is the one the Hebrews named Enoch. He was the first to predict the flood and anticipate that a celestial cataclysm would befall the earth in the form of fire or water. So, fearing the destruction of the knowledge and the disappearance of the arts, he built the pyramids and temples of Upper Egypt. Isn't that something? Everyone always wonders. Geez, this gets me so excited. Oh, man. Everyone always wonders, what were the pyramids built for? Like, we're taught that they're built as tombs. Yeah, to entomb something, but not a dead body. That's ridiculous. Especially, it's ridiculous in so many ways. Come on. The pyramids. I'm going to get back to the guide stones here in a minute. But these pyramids right here, these are magnificent. They're huge. They're gigantic. Not to protect a body. Not to protect the pharaoh. The dead body of a rotting pharaoh. That doesn't even make any sense. But to protect information. Made of stone. Right? This was designed to survive a world cataclysm. In my humble opinion. And that's also why we have things like the Georgia Guidestones and other places and monuments around the world. Now, there are some out there who are naysayers about the Georgia Guidestones. That's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. I love them. I can't get enough. Okay? Whether it be Stonehenge, the pyramids, the Georgia Guidestones, whatever. People are like, oh, they're trying to, it's the Illuminati trying to kill everybody. You need to read them. Okay? Read it, please. Because it's not about trying to kill everybody. It's about preserving life, not destroying it. But anyway, I like that idea that the pyramids, especially and specifically the Great Pyramid, was designed to save information. A library of information. Speaking of a library of information, is there anything underneath the Sphinx? The Sphinx guards the pyramid. Now, there's a rumor. Let me go ahead and read this to you. The ancient Egyptian moon god Hermes Trismegistus reported on a library of knowledge in his mystical works. Legend has it that there is a maze below the paws of the Sphinx that leads to the mystery-shrouded Hall of Records. Interesting. A Hall of Records. A Hall of Recordings. Recording information. Why? A secret area, a secret library that's got all kinds of information of the world, where all essential knowledge of alchemy, astronomy, mathematics, magic, and medicine is stored. Well, this lines right up with the idea that Adam had instructed his sons and their sons and their sons to preserve the knowledge that had been accumulated from the beginning, because it would be lost, and it was known that it would be lost. Very interesting. Now that brings us to the modern world. In the modern world, I believe that we have breadcrumbs from ourselves. We have surviving in our collective subconscious this exact same knowledge. I don't believe it's something that can even be forgotten entirely. So, we make movies. We write books. We have television and things of that nature. We entertain ourselves by reminding ourselves over and over and over again about this ancient knowledge. but we pretend it's not real. But we're enamored with it. We love it. We want it. We're constantly distracting ourselves with these movies and television shows and things of that nature, when in reality, it could be that they contain some of the most truthful breadcrumbs of all. For example, Waterworld, right? We'll see these various movies that exhibit the world being flooded and the world being set ablaze. Waterworld here, you can see, has a blue sky, right? That's because whenever the world floods, the sky turns blue. The sky is not always blue, okay? As a matter of fact, in the ancient writings, you can't even find the word blue because the sky was red. Most of it. In different places. We've also got your post-apocalyptic movies like Mad Max and other variants, where you see almost a rusty, orangey, red-colored atmosphere, where everything looks like it's just been burned and there's sand everywhere and dust and things like that. Water, fire. We are feeding ourselves entertainment in the form of ancient truth. The Day After Tomorrow, blue, water, flood. The movie Knowing with Nicolas Cage, where the sun is responsible for the earth burning. We're going to get into that too. So how does this happen, right? We've also got geostorm, which means worldwide storm, or storm of the earth, or worldwide tempest. In Frank Waters' writings on Hopi mythology, the blue star Kachina, or Sakwasoha, is a Kachina or spirit that will signify the coming of the beginning of the new world by appearing in the form of a blue star. The blue star Kachina is said to be the ninth and final sign before the day of purification. Well, what's the day of purification? It's the day of judgment, judgment day. It's the apocalypse. It's the plasma apocalypse. It's the Imco. It goes by a million different names, right? Described as an apocalypse or a world engulfing cataclysm that will lead to the destruction of planet Earth. I would like to just say the destruction of planet Earth as we know it, okay? Because if these things have happened in the past, obviously the Earth is still here. Obviously life goes on. It's the destruction of the world as we know it. The blue star Kachina. Now let's Google blue stars, right? Let's ask the question, what's the hottest color of a star? White stars are hotter than red and yellow. Blue stars are the hottest stars of all. Well, wait a minute, isn't our sun called a star? It used to be yellow, if my memory serves me correct, and many, many thousands upon thousands of other people remember a yellow sun. Superman gets his power from our yellow sun. But that yellow color is starting to go. It's starting to fade. It's starting to shift. It's in flux. It's changing. It's turning white. And after it turns white, it might turn blue. So here's what's happening. Let's get into the mechanics of it. These are the types of things, the knowledge that have been buried and preserved so that we can pass it along to future generations. I'm burying it with you. Okay? I'm not going to write it down and put it in the dirt or anything or build a pyramid. I'm just going to bury it in your mind to do with as you wish. Now, here's an example of the blue star Kachina. It's very simple. This is just a flashlight. This person is changing the flashlight from a floodlight, which is the big circle, to a spotlight, which is the little circle. This is a great example of our world and what happens when our sunlight starts to turn towards the blue spectrum. The sun itself will become more focused. The light will become more focused. If this light in this circle right here represents daytime or the day or the daylight, that means that the day itself will be shortened as it goes from something large like the floodlight to something small like the spotlight. It also means that because when you have the spotlight, those rays are more direct, they're more hot. When the rays are spread out, they're more cooler, right? So that means the daytime itself will be burning hot. Let's go to the opposite end of the spectrum. I'm going to come back to the blue star Kachina, and I'm going to come back to the mechanics of it in just a bit, but I want to talk about the Great Winter, Fimbulwinter. For you, those of you who are fans of Game of Thrones, they're constantly saying winter is coming, right? And it's a specific winter. It's a great winter. It's known in Norse mythology as Fimbulwinter or Fimbulvetter, right? There's different ways of pronouncing it, but it's the great winter. Fimbulwinter is the harsh winter that precedes the end of the world, as we know it, and puts an end to all life on Earth. Fimbulwinter is 3 successive winters. That's 3 years in a row of nothing but winter, when snow comes in from all directions without any intervening summer. Innumerable wars follow. Now, the reason that the wars follow is because this is towards the end of the age. During the end of the age, the energy in our world ramps up. Okay? As the energy ramps up before it pops, we respond in turn. Humanity, animals, insects, everything responds as the energy gets excited, I'll say. And a lot of times that reflects physically in the form of swarming, getting together. People become agitated, irritable. Animals, insects, they swarm. And we would call that war when humans do it. Let's see. The event is described primarily in the Poetic Edda. In the poem, Odin poses the question to Vafthrûdnir as to who of mankind will survive the Fimbulwinter. Vafthrûdnir responds that Leif and Leifbrasir will survive, this man and this woman, and that they will live in the forest of Hodmimi's Holt. Now, where is Hodmimi's Holt? This is a magical forest. I'll tell you exactly where it is. It's at the North Pole and around the North Pole. The North Pole is, according to my research, always a safe haven. It's always the eye of the storm. It's a peaceful, quiet place when the whole rest of the world is being torn apart. The mythology might be related to the extreme weather events of 535 and 536, which resulted in a notable drop in temperature across Northern Europe. So now what they're trying to do is explain this away in ways that make sense to them, right? Now, there was something that happened in 535 and 536. Like I said, there were volcanic eruptions and whatnot. They actually don't know what happened in 535. They're guessing it was a volcanic eruption. What else do we got? Let me move on. There was something called a year without summer. The year without summer in 1816. The year 1816 is known as the year without summer because of a severe climate abnormality that caused average global temperatures to drop drastically. What happened? Well, there was a volcano, Mount Tambora. Now, many of you have probably heard of Krakatoa, Mount Vesuvius, but have you ever heard of Mount Tambora? I never had until earlier. This was the greatest volcanic eruption on record. Why is it that this is my first time hearing about it? I don't know. Maybe it's just passed me by. But it caused a volcanic winter for an entire year. Crops were lost everywhere. They said that there was almost like I think they called it a dry fog, because of the volcanic explosion. And this was, Mount Tambora is located in Indonesia on the Sunda Islands, which, by the way, today there's about over 1.5 million people living there. This blows my mind. All of you people, what are you doing? All of you people who live near these volcanoes, why are you living there? Are you really think you're going to be, are you just hoping? Are you just hoping you're going to be okay? It blows my mind. I don't know how you people can live near volcanoes that have almost destroyed the world, or any volcano at all. I don't know. That's just me. Good luck to you. But anyways, in 538, Roman statesman Cassiodorus described the following in one of his subordinate letters. The sun's rays were weak, and it appeared a bluish color. The sun has turned blue before. But remember, I was talking about the sun turning blue and being hot, even setting the earth on fire. We're going to come to that in just a second when we talk about the mechanics. But I want to talk about what other ways the sun itself, our sun, the point of focus up there in the sky, turns blue. Well, if there's an abundance of ash or dust in the air, it scatters the particles and makes the sun look like it's blue. Now, there's a difference between the sun looking like it's blue because of all of the debris in the sky and the sun turning blue. Also, I typed in, just out of curiosity, blue sun to see what kind of song lyrics pop up. Every single song that's been written about a blue sun is basically one that's saying it's bad. It's a bad omen. It's not good, right? This particular song right here is called Blue Sun by Destiny Potato, and there's other variants of it, right? And one of the lines says, "No, you can't pretend that everything's all right when all you know falls apart. All your knowledge disappears. All you know falls apart. Blue sun will rise and shine and burn its light." Not shine its light, burn its light. You might lose this fight. Anyways, I thought that was kind of interesting. That's a side note, though, so I'm going to get rid of it. Here's an image of the blue sun in Beijing after a sandstorm. As you can see, it makes the sun appear to be blue, right? So let's talk about how the sun actually turns blue and the blue star Kachina. I have a few different diagrams I'm going to go over with everyone right now, so bear with me. Let's start with the Great Winter. Now I'm going to use this azimuthal equidistant map of the Earth from the top-down view. Let's see. Let's go back a step here. Now, as you can see, there are the tropics. Let me go ahead and make this a bit bigger here. Can I make it bigger? Well, that's good enough. Anyways, so this red line right here represents the Tropic of Cancer. This is the equator, and this is the Tropic of Capricorn. Just in case you've forgotten from your academic studies in 18 years of schooling or however long you guys went for. The tropics are where the sun stops its movement, okay? The equator is the equal portion, the middle of the sun's movement. And then you've got the Tropic of Cancer essentially is the maximum summertime. So when the sun gets up here in this ring, that's whenever it's summertime in the northern hemisphere and the sun is directly above. It will not transgress this marker, typically. And then it starts to move back down. It gets to the equator, the equal portion, the middle part. And then it passes the equator and it goes to the other extreme, which is the Tropic of Capricorn, where it will stop and then start making its way back, right? However, let me go ahead and make this diagram again. This is what happens during the Great Winter, okay? There's about a 3-year period. Like I said, 3 years of winter, 3.5, 3 years, whatever you want to call it. This is the path of the sun, okay? It's spiraling. It's not just circling, it's spiraling. Now, you have to imagine, this is from my own perspective, so I'm not going with the mainstream academic version. I'm just going with my own ancient cosmological views from my own studies with the ancient knowledge. Now, the sun is spiraling, right? What happens during Fimbulvinter is that the sun basically stops going up towards the Tropic of Cancer, which is the summertime version, and it starts spiraling further and further away each year. It spirals so far that it leaves. Okay, I'm going to show you a better example of that here in just a minute. Now let's take a look at the opposite version. This is the blue star Kachina. This is when the world is set on fire by the sun, right? What happens is the sun transgresses its boundary from the Tropic of Cancer, right? Instead of spiraling and stopping at the Tropic of Cancer, it continues. It will go out to about the equator, but then it will come in tighter and go past the Tropic of Cancer so that the sun is directly above in places like Canada or Siberia. And then it'll do that for about 3.5 years, and it'll continue its spiral until it gets to the middle, to the North Pole, right under the star Polaris. Let's see what else we've got here. Okay, so this one's kind of interesting. So I just filled in the area between the tropics where you get the most sunlight in the world. And then I put like a little lighter version because obviously you're going to have like a little extra sunlight on the edges there. And then I'm going to make it bigger, right? I'm going to make it bigger and bigger and bigger until essentially you don't have any direct sunlight. Now, let me show you from a better angle what that looks like. Let me make this smaller so you can see all of it. Okay, so this is a rudimentary drawing that I've done. Okay, imagine our world from the side. Imagine it looks somewhat like a snow globe. Okay, this flat portion right here would be the Earth's surface, as you can see there. You can't really see because this tardigrade's in the way, but these arrows are pointing to what we would call daytime or daylight. All right. Now, this dome shape above is the firmament or the sky as depicted in ancient cosmologies. What happens, and the reason that we get sunlight or daytime, is because we have a plasma sphere around our world, or a plasma, whatever you want to call it, dome, sphere, hemisphere, whatever you want to call it. There's plasma encompassing our world, which is light, right? Now, plasma is physical, so it hits a physical boundary, which is the firmament, the firm sky, the solid portion, the boundary. You could also call it the Van Allen belts if you're more of a modern academic type of person. The plasma hits that, and the plasma wraps around it, but the light from the plasma precedes. The light from the plasma continues on. What happens when that light directly hits this curved shape of the sky is it's refracted, or it's redirected at an angle. And it's mathematical. I'm not much of a mathematical person, but I'll just show you here. This middle one, you see these two in the middle? This is the light coming down. The light comes down, hits the sky, the dome of the sky, and it comes in at an angle, okay? Now, from here to here would be like a plasma tube, I'll call it, okay? That's also what academics is starting to call it as well, just so you know. So this yellow one to this yellow one is where it normally is. So you could actually fill all of this in with spiraling plasma, okay? All of it. And what that plasma does is it fluctuates. It's just like your blood vessels. They get wider and then they shrink up, and they get wider and they shrink up above our world, okay? Now, what happens is the light comes down, it refracts at an angle, and where all of these angles or rays hit, where they meet, is what's known as a point of focus. That point of focus is above us, called the sun or sunlight, right? Actually, below that point of focus is what we call sunlight or daytime, right? Now, this one right here, I've labeled normal. This is what it normally is. This yellow spot right here would be our sun, right? Now, whenever remember I said it fluctuates, right? It gets bigger and it gets smaller. It gets bigger and it gets smaller. This is what gives us seasons, okay? When it's really big, it gives us winter. When it's really small, it gives us summer, okay? Whenever our world goes through an electromagnetic polarity flip or polarity reversal, it will do one of two things. It will either go so large that it goes out into flux, or it will go so small that it will fluctuate once it gets to its smallest point. So let's say that this is Fimbulvinter, okay? So let's say that plasma tube around or above our world gets so big as it's about to go into flux, right? During the electromagnetic polarity reversal, that it goes so wide that the point of focus lies below the ground. What does that mean for us? That means that there is no longer a sun. There cannot be a point of focus because these rays of light cannot touch in an area above the ground. Therefore, there is no sun. The sun itself would disappear. How would we see this? We would see this as the sun. You've probably seen like the sun, like time-lapse photography of the sun getting lower and lower and lower and lower on the horizon. The ancients, who contained and revered ancient knowledge, practiced and prepared for the day that the sun would disappear. Now, we tend to make fun of this, unfortunately, in modern academics, saying, oh, the old people, the old world, they thought the sun would actually disappear, because it was getting lower and lower and lower on the horizon, and it would stay there at its lowest point for 3 days. We call this Christmas, and then it would come back up, right? But the ancients knew that one time out of many, it would not come back up. It would sink below the horizon and poof, disappear. The whole world would turn dark. And that would be whenever the plasma tubes above are at their widest point. So this one all the way over to this one, okay? I've labeled this one winter cycle or the lights out, okay? Now what happens whenever it's the opposite, okay? When it's the opposite, the plasma tube constricts so small that daylight, right, becomes more like a laser. Okay? It's a focused light, and instead of having a floodlight of what we call daytime, it becomes smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, which means the literal daylight itself has the potential to set things on fire. And that wherever that daylight goes, fire would ensue, burning would ensue. People would stay out of the daytime purposefully for about 3 years. And the sun itself, because it's turning so hot, turns blue. Okay? Like we talked about the star spectrum or light spectrum, the red color to the orange to the yellow, those are more of the cooler colors. Then you get white, that's getting a little bit more into the hotter. Then you've got light blue and dark blue, which are very, very, very hot. The blue star Kachina, I believe, this is my, a theory that I have and based on my own research, but I believe that it is our own sun that turns blue, making daytime way smaller. Okay? That would mean that in the middle of the day, if you were able to stand the immense heat of the blue star Kachina, and the sun was directly above you at noontime, off to either the east or the west, you would see the night. That's how small the daytime would be, right? Interesting stuff. That's my thumbnail I made. Was that it? Was that all I had for today? Let's find out. Yeah, I think that was pretty much it. All right, cool. So let's just do a quick recap. We talked about the ancient prophecy of the world being destroyed by fire and by water, that it's cyclical. It goes back and forth between the two. We referenced some ancient books, some ancient historians, and some other things. We talked about the idea that the pyramids may have actually been made to contain ancient knowledge. We gave reference to other places that contain the ancient knowledge. We talked about Hermes Trismegistus. We talked about modern pop culture and how we actually still retain these memories collectively. Let's see. We talked about the blue star Kachina. We talked about the cataclysm of fire, I believe, comes from the sun, which, by the way, they show that in the movie Knowing, right? Many of these movies, they show you. There's a song, too. Speaking of that one song, the Blue Sun song, there's another one called Trampoline. I highly recommend checking this song out. This song, Trampoline by Shayed, or however you say her name, the whole song is about both apocalypses. It's about a water apocalypse and a fire apocalypse. There's no way she's talking about being so in love or whatever. Nah, sorry. I'm not buying that. All right, let me go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and start taking some of these down. I'm going to jump into the chat here in just a second. I have not been in the chat the whole time. We talked about the Hall of Records and the alleged location under the Sphinx itself. Now they are going to say, oh, there's nothing underneath the Sphinx. Like, we've looked. Nah, no, I don't think so. Knowledge is power. Knowledge of the ancient ways is what helps us to prepare and to prophesy and to foresee what is to come in the future. We talked about floodlights versus spotlights, right? And how the light of our sun or daytime can actually shrink, get smaller, and intensify. It's kind of like crematoria. Remember that planet crematoria on the... what was that movie called? The one with Vin Diesel? What was that called? I'm going to Google it real quick. Crematoria. No, I want the place. Oh, Riddick. Yeah, so the Chronicles of Riddick. There was a planet called Crematoria. They're not showing you some other crazy world. They're always showing us our own world. They're giving it back to us, our own knowledge of ancient mysteries, but they just put it in our head that it's not really here. See, the best truths are told in story form so that those who are looking for the truth will get it, and those who are not worthy or trustworthy will simply be entertained. I'm actually going to keep that one up because I might actually have to save that and reference that later. All right, so let me go ahead and get rid of that. Boom. And I want to jump into the old chat here. Let's pull up some chat stuff. If you would like to get my attention or say something to me, just type in Jay or JayDreamerZ. Yes, Aol says The Chronicles of Riddick. Yes, thank you. I love the whole series. The whole thing is so good. In the Chronicles of Riddick, they have the where there's like the meeting of the different stars in the sky. That's also what do you call that? The Great Conjunction, essentially, which is also in the Dark Crystal. Right? They show you the Great Conjunction. What is the Great Conjunction? Well, remember how I said the sun spirals until it lines up right in the middle above the North Pole? Right above that is the eye in the sky that opens up. So you've got two circles. One is the inner dome, one is the outer dome, and they both have holes inside of them during this event. It looks like an eye in the sky. And then you've got the sun. Those are three circular objects up in the sky, creating a great conjunction, an eclipse that turns the world dark, etc. That's also in the Chronicles of Riddick. Very awesome movie. Angel Lovebud says, much love to all. Good vibes. Wah, 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 wah. That's my Pac-Man noise. Let's see. Anything else here in the chat? What'd you guys think of the presentation? I would like to know, did you learn anything new? Did you find any of this useful? Was there something... was there anything that you enjoyed? So I'm going to be doing more of these, Plasma Apocalypse 101. The first one we talked about was cycles, how this is a cycle, how these cataclysms are real, and we've all forgotten about it. And you know what's messed up too? We were told that we would forget. In all of these ancient writings, they talked about how mankind has forgotten time and time again. And in the last days before the cataclysm returns, there would be two things happening. One, there would be a group of naysayers who say, that never happened. There's no way. The Earth's going to be around forever. Nothing's ever going to destroy the world as we know it. That's ridiculous. I haven't seen it myself. That happens every time. And then you've got those who return to the old ways, those who regain the ancient knowledge, and they start learning and diving into it and researching and preparing for it. Troy Paris is in the chat and says, JayDreamerZ, listen to the Burial songs by Busta Rhymes. You know what Busta Rhymes song I like the most is the one where he does the Knight Rider beat. Anyways, that's from when I was a kid. Hey, I got a donation from Zenwin. Thank you. I appreciate you. Check you out. Zenwin. We got Raven in the chat who changed the picture. There's no Luigi anymore. I like this one though. Who says, JayDreamerZ, overall very thought-provoking. I can't believe I hadn't equated Enoch with Hermes. Also, do you like my new icon? I do. Chickadee says, great presentation. What will happen on December 21st, 2021? Can't tell you. Don't know. Sorry. Donnie Danko, I like that picture too, says, JayDreamerZ, thanks for the knowledge. You're very welcome. We've got Val L, a regular in the chat, who says, JayDreamerZ, yes. The floodlight versus flashlight, or whatever. How that is visible and arced between the dome and here. That's new to me. Excellent, excellent. Zenwin gives some hearts. Thank you. We've got Don't Watch My Videos, says JayDreamerZ. When's the next campfire video? I don't know. I was sick this week. I'm still a little under the weather, so I needed to save my voice and stuff like that. So probably when I start feeling a little better. And I'm going to be bringing back the Sylvan Lining soon as well. I'm also going to review all the Matrix movies. I'm still on the first one because I got sick and stuff, so I have some catching up to do. Stan Rutherford says, JayDreamerZ, awesome presentation. I've only heard of one other person talking about the plasma apocalypse. Awesome. Redundant says, at Jay, thanks. I like hearing that the pyramids may be for storing knowledge and not a power station. I like that too. I like that too. Gaz W says, season's greetings, Jay. I caught you live from the UK. Great information stream as usual. You know what's crazy? Speaking of season's greetings, I have not wished for anything from Santa. I have not asked Santa for a damn thing. Instead, I went over to Mr. Beast's channel and I started making all my Christmas wishes on Mr. Beast's channel. Nah, I just left one comment. I'm like, hey, bro, if you're going to give away $1 million to some YouTubers, hit me up. I could put that to good use. Can you imagine what my channel would be like if I had $1 million or something? Insane. Anyway, I am 007 Durf says, JayDreamerZ petrified Titan in East Alabama. Okay. And Seeking Yeshua says, JayDreamerZ, have you heard about Earth's black box being constructed in Australia? Nope, I don't even know what you're talking about. We've got Just Pick a Name Already says, health for you, Jay. Feel better soon. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. I think that's enough of the comments for today, or the chat for today. I'd love to hear more about what you guys think in the comments section. And I wanted to just say thanks. I'm always humbled that so many people are watching my channel. I'm glad that you guys are getting stuff out of it. And I want to give a huge shout out to the Good Vibe Tribe. You guys have inspired me more times than you can even know. Okay? Whether it be through the comments on my videos or in the chat. I'm not even talking about donations and stuff. I'm just saying you're inspiring. You have the good vibes, and God knows I've needed it over the past couple of years. I've gone through so many ups and downs. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sharing my stuff. Thanks for talking about stuff together. Thanks for making friends with one another. Thanks for being cool. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure you guys appreciate one another. With that being said, I'm going to take off and roll the credits. Until next time, I'm JayDreamerZ saying good vibes and goodbye.
I try so hard to fade away. I try so hard to fade away, but something's forcing me to stay. It'd be easier for me if I turn away to flee. Oh, but there's something holding on, the way of being long gone. There's so many ways to escape, but I guess it's time to wake up, time to wake up. Far too many ways to escape, but I guess time to wake up, time to wake up, time to wake up, time to wake up, baby. Time to wake up, time to wake up, time to wake up, time to wake up, baby. Time to wake up, time to wake up. I know I should have done this, should have quit this long ago. Can't stand another heartbreak, but it's time to let it go. It'd be easier for me if I turn away to flee. Oh, but there's something holding on, the way of being long gone. There's so many ways to escape, but I guess it's time to wake up, time to wake up. Far too many ways to escape, but I guess it's time to wake up, time to wake up. Time to wake up, time to wake up, baby. Time to wake up, time to wake up. Time to wake up, time to wake up, baby. Time to wake up, time to wake up.
Okay, so for those of you who stuck around, I like to hang out in the chat when the credits are rolling and just say what's up to everybody. I totally forgot. I spaced out on explain. I explained how the world is set on fire from the blue star Kachina, but I totally forgot to explain where the floodwaters come from, which is how I started this video. So, a little bonus content, I guess, for everyone who's still watching. That's crazy. Half the people have already gone, so they may miss out on this. Oh well. So, anyways, let us continue just for a bit, because I would like to explain some of these theories that I have. I'm glad you guys enjoyed the credits too, by the way. I spent a long time on that. And somebody said, Val L says, I eat vampires for breakfast. I love that. That's funny. So let's talk about the dome, okay? So where do these floodwaters come from? Well, we have a flood right now. It's called the ocean. All of the ocean will disappear one day. This is a Bible prophecy. I don't know if it's in other places. There are some ancient legends from Native American tribes who talked about how their rivers and their lakes and stuff either changed location or moved or disappeared entirely. It is my belief, based on my research thus far, that the entire ocean will, like I said, get sucked up into the sky during the neutral point, where there is zero gravity for a short period of time. During the worldwide tempest, the winds pick everything up, the waters and all kinds of other stuff get sucked up into the sky. We're going to talk about that on a future video. And there will be no ocean, okay? There'll still be little pockets, rivers, little small rivers, little lakes and things like that, but no ocean, no flooding, no floodwaters. They will be gone. So when that happens, the sky turns red. We live more in a magical world where everything's inundated with energy. The blue beam will shoot up and fill our world with magic or spirit or energy, whatever you like to call it. And what happens right now, okay, I'm going to try to give you the short, easy version as best as I can, but we've got at least 2 domes above us right now, 2 firmaments, 2 skies. And this is also pictured if you look up ancient cosmologies and you see the images of the domes above us. They usually show 2 of them. And then they have like something right in the middle saying like the doorway to the heavens, or the door of God, or something like that. It's basically the hole, okay? So the inner dome still has a hole from the last apocalypse, which is how we get like the moon and eclipses and some other things like that, which I can't explain right now. We'll have to do that another time. So the inner dome still has a hole in it. The outer dome is the fresh one. It's the new one that's been made. Where does the dome come from? The plasma that's coming down, when the plasma comes down, it smashes into the electromagnetic force field around our world. As it smashes and shapes itself around that electromagnetic invisible dome, all of the water that's a byproduct of that plasma instantly freezes, creating the dome of the sky, right? Every other cycle, it's my belief thus far that the world experiences worldwide earthquakes that pull our world apart. Essentially, our world grows. The earth grows, okay? It spreads out, it gets bigger, and that dome above us, the sky itself, breaks apart and falls to the ground. The sky falls. When that happens, obviously, all of that ice, which I believe is what it is because the water freezes, it's ice, melts and it turns into water. That water mixes with all of the dust and sand and all of the stuff that was left over from when the world was burning, which creates, what do they call it? Salinity or whatever? Salt water, essentially, right? So the dome melts. There's also water that comes up from below, which I believe happens probably like every time. But every other cycle, the inner dome will break. It'll fall apart. The sky itself will fall down. We'll still have the outer dome, and then a new dome is created and replaces it whenever the electromagnetic barrier goes back up and the reversal is coming down from the what we would call the blue sky. Like right now we have a blue sky and all that energy is coming down at us, right? And that's whenever the dome is created. So hopefully that makes sense. I know that's kind of like a whole lot of direct, really quick explanation, but I had totally forgotten to mention it. I wanted to mention it. Where does the water come from? I totally don't believe that water comes from slushy comets or snowball asteroids or whatever it is that they say in modern academics today. I don't even know. I lost track of how they explain all of that. But anyway, to everyone who's still watching, hello. Oh, how cool. Bradley Francis says, hey, if you get a sudden surge in subscribers, it's because I'm wearing my JayDreamerZ hoodie all the time. Man, that is so cool. I'm going to go check out my merch stuff today. I might buy my own merch for Christmas. Like, I don't have any of my own merch, but maybe I'll start rocking it pretty soon. Anyway, hopefully that makes sense to all of you guys. The water is created from above. It falls from above. It lands here. It melts every other cycle. We get a flood every other cycle. That's where the water comes from. So if you stuck around to the end, hopefully everything makes more sense to you. I love you guys, and I'm going to go